"You don't belong here, sir. Economy is back that way." Those were the last words Kane, the chief purser of Flight 409, said with a smirk, before she slammed the first-class curtain shut. She thought she was just putting a troublesome passenger in his place. She didn't look at his boarding pass closely. She didn't check the manifest. And she certainly didn't know that the man in the faded grey hoodie she just humiliated was Derek Michael, the man who had secretly signed the paperwork to acquire the entire airline exactly 45 minutes ago. They told him his seat was unavailable. He's about to make their careers unavailable. This is the story of how arrogance met its end at 30,000 feet. The automatic doors of JFK Terminal 4 slid open, letting in a gust of biting November wind. But Derek Michael barely felt the cold. He adjusted the hood of his charcoal grey pullover, pulling it slightly lower over his brow. It was a habit born of necessity, not style. In Silicon Valley, where he ran Obsidian Dynamics, a hoodie was a uniform. Here in the polished, high-gloss world of premium commercial travel, it was apparently a warning sign. Derek checked his watch, a scratched Garmin meant for triathlons, not the Patek Philippe he kept in his safe. 6:45 a.m. His flight, Ascension. Airways Flight A. A409 to London Heathrow was scheduled for boarding in an hour. He was tired. It wasn't the good kind of tired that came after a successful board meeting or a long run. It was a bone-deep exhaustion. He had spent the last 72 hours in a negotiation room in Midtown Manhattan, surviving on stale coffee and adrenaline. The deal was done. The ink was dry. Technically, as of this morning, Derek owned a controlling 51% stake in the parent company of the very airline he was about to fly. But nobody knew that yet. The press release wasn't scheduled to drop until the markets opened on Monday. Today he just wanted to be a passenger. He wanted the seat 1A. He had paid $12,000 for a glass of champagne and 8 hours of silence. He approached the Ascension Airways first-class check-in counter. The red carpet was plush under his sneakers. There was no line. Behind the counter stood a man whose name tag read Gregory. Gregory was tall with hair gelled so tightly it looked painful, and he was currently laughing at something on his phone. Derek cleared his throat. Gregory didn't look up. He swiped his thumb across the screen, chuckling. "Excuse me," Derek said louder this time. Gregory finally lifted his head. His eyes did a quick, practiced scan of Derek's body. He saw the sneakers, scuffed from a morning jog 2 days ago. He saw the loose-fitting joggers. He saw the hoodie. The smile vanished from Gregory's face, replaced by a look of pinched annoyance, like he smelled something sour. "Deliveries are at the south entrance, buddy," Gregory said, his voice flat. He looked back down at his phone. Derek blinked. He wasn't easily rattled. You don't build a billion-dollar AI logistics firm by being fragile. But the sheer casualness of the dismissal stung. "I'm not a courier," Derek said, resting his passport on the high marble counter. "I'm checking in for Flight 409 to London." Gregory sighed, a long, exaggerated exhale that ruffled the papers on his desk. He looked at Derek with the pitying expression one might give a lost child or a confused stray dog. "Sir, this is the first-class priority lane. Economy and premium economy check-in is around the corner past the Starbucks. The kiosks are self-service." "I know where economy is," Derek said, his voice dropping an octave. "And I know where I am standing. I'm in first class. Scan the passport, Gregory." The use of his name made Gregory flinch. He narrowed his eyes, snatched the passport with 2 fingers as if it were contaminated, and dropped it onto the scanner. He typed furiously on his keyboard, clearly preparing to deliver the "I told you so" speech of his life. Bleep. The screen flashed green. Gregory froze. He squinted at the monitor. Derek Michael. Seat 1A. Status Global Infinity Key. It was the highest status tier the airline offered. It was invite only. A smart employee would have apologized immediately. A smart employee would have realized that in 2024, wealth doesn't always wear a suit and tie. But Gregory wasn't a smart employee. He was a man whose ego was currently writing checks his paycheck couldn't cash. He stared at the screen, then back at Derek. There was no recognition in his eyes, only suspicion. Computer glitch, Gregory muttered. He picked up the phone on his desk. Hey, tech support. Yeah, it's Greg at counter 4. I've got a discrepancy here. System is showing a global key status on a passenger who doesn't fit the profile. Yeah. No, I think it's a system error. Maybe a duplicate name. Derek stood there, his hands in his pockets, listening to a man discuss his validity as a human being right in front of him. It's not a glitch, Gregory, Derek said calmly. Print the boarding pass. Gregory ignored him. Yeah, okay. I'll reset the terminal. Thanks. He hung up and looked at Derek with a renewed sense of smug authority. Sir, the system is acting up. It happens. Usually when people buy tickets through third-party brokers or suspicious credit card activity. I can't check you in here until it clears. My credit card is fine, Derek said, his jaw tightening. I'm sure it is, Gregory said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Look, I can't hold up the line. Derek looked behind him. The terminal was empty. There is no line. I need you to step aside, sir. Security is tight today. Gregory pushed the passport back across the counter, unopened. Go to the customer service desk in the main hall. They handle verification issues. Derek took a deep breath. He could have made a call right then. He had the personal cell phone number of the Vice President of Operations saved in his phone. One call, and Gregory would be escorted out of the building by security. But Derek was curious. He wanted to see how deep the rot went. If the front desk was this broken, what was happening in the air? He was about to own this company. This wasn't just an inconvenience anymore. It was an audit. Fine, Derek said, taking his passport. I'll handle it. He didn't go to customer service. He pulled out his phone and opened the airline's app. The digital boarding pass was there, bright and blue. Seat 1A. He didn't need Gregory to print anything. He had TSA, pre-check, and clear. He could bypass the desk entirely. See you at the gate, Gregory, Derek murmured, turning away. Gregory didn't hear him. He was already laughing at his phone again, typing a text message. Derek caught a glimpse of the screen reflection in the plexiglass. Some hoodie thug tried to scam the first-class line. Probably stolen miles, sent him packing. LOL. Derek memorized the timestamp. 7:05 a.m. He walked toward security, his face impassive, but his mind racing. Strike one, he thought. Let's see if you strike out. The walk to gate B32 was long, and Derek used the time to compose himself. He bought a bottle of water and a Wall Street Journal from a Hudson News stand. He needed to look the part of a passenger who just wanted to sleep not a billionaire on a warpath. When he arrived at the gate, boarding hadn't started yet. The waiting area was divided into zones. Zone 1, the area for first class, and Diamond members was roped off with blue velvet stanchions. It was sparsely populated. A few men in bespoke suits were tapping on iPads. A woman with a Louis Vuitton carry-on and a small dog was sipping a latte. Derek approached the Zone 1 lane. He scanned his digital pass at the automated turnstile. Buzz. A red light flashed. See agent. Derek sighed. Of course. Gregory had flagged the ticket. He walked up to the podium. 2 gate agents were there. One was an older man, who looked like he was asleep with his eyes open. The other was a woman in her 30s, with sharp features and a tight bun. Her name tag read Patricia. She was typing furiously, snapping gum in her mouth. "The scanner sent me here," Derek said, holding up his phone. Patricia didn't stop typing. Name, Derek Michael. Her fingers stopped. She looked at the screen, then at Derek. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, not of him, but of the situation. It was the look of someone who had been warned. "Ah, Mr. Michael," she said. Her voice was sickly sweet, the kind of tone used to talk to a toddler holding a knife. "Yes, we have a bit of a problem." "Let me guess," Derek said. "My ticket isn't valid." "Oh, the ticket is valid," Patricia said, tilting her head. "But unfortunately the seat you selected, 1A, is technically unavailable." "Unavailable?" Derek checked his phone. "It shows as occupied by me." "Yes, well, the app lags sometimes," she lied smoothly. "You see, seat 1A has a broken recline mechanism. Maintenance just flagged it 10 minutes ago. For safety reasons, we can't seat you there." Derek looked at the plane visible through the window. He could see the first-class cabin being prepped. "I don't need the recline. I'll take it upright." "I can't allow that, sir. FAA regulations," she said, invoking the magic words that usually shut passengers up. "However, the flight is quite full. We have a lovely seat for you in the main cabin. Row 14. It's an exit row. Extra legroom." "I paid $12,000 for a lie-flat bed. Patricia, not an exit row." Patricia's smile tightened. "We will issue a refund for the fare difference, of course. It will appear on your card in 7 to 10 business days." She printed a new boarding pass, a flimsy slip of thermal paper, and slid it onto the counter. "Row 14, seat C." "And the other first-class seats?" Derek asked. "There are 8 suites in the cabin. Are they all broken?" "Full." "Every single one," Patricia said quickly. "We have a full delegation flying to a summit." It was a lie. Derek knew the load factors. He had access to the back-end data through the due diligence files on his phone. There were 2 open seats in first class as of this morning. "Patricia," Derek said, leaning in slightly. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "Do what, sir?" She blinked innocently. "I'm just trying to get us on time. Now, if you don't take the seat, I'll have to offload you. We have a standby list a mile long." It was an ultimatum. Take the humiliation or stay in New York. Derek looked at the boarding pass. 14C. He looked at Patricia. She was holding his gaze, challenging him. She expected him to yell. She expected him to cause a scene so she could call the police and have him removed for being belligerent. That was the playbook. Provoke the outsider, wait for the reaction, then play the victim. Derek didn't yell. He smiled. It was a cold, razor-sharp smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Okay," Derek said softly. "I'll take 14C." Patricia looked disappointed. She wanted the fight. "Wise choice. Boarding for Zone 4 starts in 20 minutes. Please wait over there." She pointed to the crowded general seating area. Derek took the ticket. He walked away from the podium, but he didn't go to the general seating. He stood near a pillar, partially obscured, and watched. 5 minutes later, a young man ran up to the podium. He was white, wearing ripped jeans and a t-shirt that said "Surf's Up." He looked like he was about 22. He was panting, clearly late. "I'm so late. I'm so sorry," the kid gasped. "I'm on standby. Name's Timothy Vance." Patricia's face lit up. "Oh, Mr. Vance, you made it. You're lucky. We had a last-minute cancellation in first class." Derek froze. "Really?" the kid beamed. "Awesome." "Yes," Patricia purred. Seat 1A. It's one of our best suites. Enjoy the flight." She handed him a crisp, heavy-stock, first-class boarding pass. Derek felt a heat rise in his chest that had nothing to do with anger and everything to do with justice. The seat wasn't broken. The mechanism wasn't faulty. The only thing unavailable about Seat 1A was that a black man in a hoodie had tried to sit in it. He pulled out his phone again. He opened a secure messaging app called Signal. He scrolled to a contact named Jonathan Eves, Board of Directors. He typed a single message: "I'm on Flight 409. Do not alert the crew. I want the full names of the gate agent at B32 and the lead flight attendant, and get the legal team on a conference line in 8 hours. We have a situation." He hit send. Then Derek Michael, owner of the airline, billionaire tech mogul, and current occupant of Seat 14, lined up with Zone 4. He handed his ticket to Patricia. "Have a safe flight," she said, not even looking at him. "Oh, it's going to be memorable," Derek said. He walked down the jet bridge. The air became cooler. The smell of recycled air and jet fuel hit him. He stepped onto the plane. To his left was the first-class cabin. He glanced in. There was the surfer kid, Timothy, already settled in Seat 1, holding a glass of pre-departure champagne. The seat looked perfectly functional. Timothy was reclining it, testing the buttons. Up, down, up, down. Works like a charm. Timothy laughed to a flight attendant. The flight attendant was a tall woman with blonde hair, pulled back in a severe French twist. She was pouring more champagne. She laughed with him. "Glad to hear it, sir." Derek memorized her face. This was the lead flight attendant. She turned and saw Derek standing there looking into the cabin he had paid to be in. Her smile vanished instantly. She stepped forward, physically blocking the aisle with her body. "Sir," she snapped, her voice cutting through the ambient noise, "you are holding up the line. Economy is to the right." "Just admiring the seat," Derek said. "It's a seat," she said dismissively. "Keep moving." Derek nodded. "What's your name?" She pointed to her gold nameplate, polished to a shine. "Kane." "Kane," Derek repeated. "I'll remember that." "I'm sure you will," she said, rolling her eyes. "Now move." Derek turned right. He walked past the business-class pods, past the premium economy seats, and into the tight, cramped rows of the main cabin. He found row 14. Seat C was an aisle seat, but the extra legroom Patricia had promised was non-existent because the bulkhead wall was right in front of it. He sat down. His knees pressed against the plastic wall. The seat was narrow. The air was stuffy. He buckled his belt. He closed his eyes. "Enjoy the champagne, Kane," he thought. "It's the last glass you'll ever pour." The Ascension Airways. Boeing 777 roared down the tarmac, the engines whining with a power that vibrated through the thin soles of Derek's sneakers. In Seat 14, the experience was visceral. He felt every bump, every rattle. The bulkhead wall in front of him, the one Patricia had promised would offer extra legroom, was a rigid slab of grey plastic exactly 6 inches from his knees. He was 6'2". To fit, he had to sit with his legs splayed at an awkward angle, invading the aisle space. As the plane lifted off, banking sharply over the Atlantic, Derek watched the first-class curtain swing shut. It was a heavy navy blue velvet divider, effectively a physical manifestation of the class divide. For the first hour, Derek tried to work. He opened his laptop, a sleek, custom-built machine that held the encrypted keys to Obsidian Dynamics. He needed to review the transition documents for the airline takeover. But the person in Seat 14B, a large man who had fallen asleep before the wheels left the ground, was encroaching on his armrest. The air was stiflingly hot. Derek reached up to adjust the air vent. It was broken. He pressed the call button. A soft ding echoed. 10 minutes passed. No one came. He pressed it again. Ding. Another 10 minutes. Finally, a flight attendant appeared. It wasn't Kane. It was a younger man, harried and sweating, pushing a heavy metal cart down the narrow aisle. His name tag read Jason. "Sir, please turn off the call light," Jason said, not stopping the cart. "We are in the middle of beverage service. We'll get to you when we get to you." "I just need some water," Derek said, "and the air vent is broken. It's over 80 degrees back here." "I can't fix the plane, sir," Jason snapped, handing a can of ginger ale to a woman in 14A. "And I can't serve you out of order. You have to wait until the cart reaches your row." "You are at my row," Derek pointed out. The cart was literally pressing against his knee. Jason looked at him annoyed. "I'm serving the window seat. You're the aisle. Protocol says window middle aisle. I'll come back to you." He pushed the cart forward deliberately, ignoring Derek, and began serving row 15. Derek stared at the back of Jason's uniform. It was absurd. It was petty. It was a power trip designed to make him feel small. Derek closed his eyes and took a deep breath, visualizing the organizational chart of the company. Jason, economy cabin crew. Personnel file ID, unknown. Employment status, precarious. Through the gap in the curtain, Derek saw movement. Kane, the lead flight attendant, was walking down the first-class aisle. She wasn't rushing. She was gliding. She held a silver tray. On it sat a crystal flute of amber liquid vintage Krug champagne and a porcelain ramekin of warm mixed nuts. She stopped at seat 1A. Derek leaned into the aisle, watching. Kane was beaming. Her smile was genuine, flirtatious even. She placed the tray down on the side table of Timothy Vance, the surfer kid, wearing the Surf's Up t-shirt. Timothy was currently reclining the broken seat all the way back, his feet clad in dirty socks propped up on the pristine leather ottoman. "Here you go, Mr. Vance." Kane's voice drifted back, sweet as honey. "I brought you the 2008 vintage. It's much smoother, and the pilot wanted me to let you know we're expecting a smooth ride. Is the temperature okay for you?" "It's chill," Timothy said, picking up the nuts and tossing a handful into his mouth. "Hey, you got any of those warm cookies?" "For you, absolutely," Kane cooed. "I'll bake a fresh batch right now." Derek felt a muscle in his jaw jump. He wasn't jealous of the cookie. He was enraged by the lie. They had told him the seat was broken to deny him his dignity. And now they were using the company's resources to fawn over a kid on a standby ticket, simply because he looked the part of the harmless traveler, while Derek looked like a threat. 30 minutes later, the meal service reached row 14. "Chicken or pasta?" Jason asked, finally acknowledging Derek. "Chicken," Derek said. He hadn't eaten since yesterday. Jason opened the drawer. He rummaged around. "We're out of chicken." "You just started serving," Derek said. "I'm in the first row of economy." "We load from back to front," Jason lied. "All we have is the pasta." "Fine. Pasta." Jason handed him a foil tray. It was scorching hot on the bottom and freezing cold on top. Derek peeled back the lid. It was a congealed lump of noodles in a watery red sauce. It looked inedible. He looked toward the front again. The curtain parted as Kane exited the galley. She was carrying a plate of filet mignon with asparagus and truffle mashed potatoes. The smell of roasted garlic and searing meat wafted back into economy, taunting the passengers. She served it to Timothy. Derek put his fork down. He wasn't going to eat the slop. He opened his laptop again. He needed to get online. He connected to the onboard Wi-Fi Ascension_Connect. The login screen popped up. Enter name and seat number. He typed Michael. 14C, error, access denied. He tried again. Error, payment method declined. He hadn't even entered a payment method yet. His profile was flagged. They had blacklisted his device from the network. Gregory at the gate must have put a "Do not service" note on his file, a common tactic used for unruly passengers to prevent them from filing complaints mid-air. Derek sat back, the plastic wall digging into his knees. He was cut off from the world. He was starving. He was being gaslit by the staff. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He had no signal, obviously, but he had the memo. He opened his saved files and pulled up the Employee Conduct Handbook for Ascension Airways. He began to read. He read every rule, every clause, every infraction. He wasn't a victim anymore. He was building a case. 3 hours into the flight, the situation reached a boiling point. The extra leg room lie was taking a physical toll. Derek's legs were cramping severely. He needed to stand up, walk around, and get at blood and flowing. He unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up in the aisle. The economy cabin was dark. Most people were sleeping. The beverage carts were stowed. Derek stretched his arms overhead, trying to work out the kink in his spine. He took a step toward the first-class curtain. He didn't intend to go in. He just needed to use the lavatory. The economy lavatories at the back of the plane had a line of 5 people. The first-class lavatory, located just behind the cockpit, was designated for first class, but FAA regulations allowed for flexibility if the aisle was blocked by service carts, which it wasn't, or in cases of distress. But Derek didn't even get to the curtain. "Hey." The voice was like a whip crack. Derek stopped. Kane was marching down the aisle from the first-class galley. She looked furious. Her hair was slightly out of place, and her face was flushed, as if his mere existence in the vertical position was a personal insult. "Sit down," she hissed, pointing a manicured finger at his chest. "I'm stretching my legs," Derek said, keeping his voice level. "I have a cramp." "You are congregating near the cockpit," Kane said, her voice rising. "That is a federal offense. You need to return to your seat immediately." "I'm 5 rows away from the cockpit, Kane. I am standing in the aisle of row 14. "I don't care where you are standing. You are lurking. It's making the other passengers uncomfortable." Derek looked around. The passengers in row 14 and 15 were asleep. The only person watching was a toddler in row 16 who was chewing on a plastic toy. "The only person uncomfortable here is you," Derek said. "I paid for a ticket on this flight. I have the right to stand up." "You have the right to follow crew instructions," Kane shouted. Now heads were turning. People were waking up. "If you do not sit down right now, I will have the captain restrain you." "Restrain me?" Derek laughed, a cold, incredulous sound. "For standing uncomfortable." "For aggressive behavior," Kane yelled. She was playing to the audience now, trying to frame the narrative. "You have been hostile since you boarded. You harassed the gate agent. You harassed my colleague Jason. And now you are threatening me." Derek stared at her. It was a masterclass in manipulation. She was weaponizing her fear, or her feigned fear, to turn him into a monster. "I haven't raised my voice once," Derek said quietly. "I haven't threatened anyone. I asked for water. I asked for the seat I paid for." "That seat is broken," Kane shrieked. "Is it?" Derek took a step forward. He reached out and swept the curtain aside. The cabin fell silent. There in seat 1A was Timothy. He was asleep, the seat fully reclined into a bed, the massage function clearly humming as the leather vibrated gently. The broken red light on the control panel was nowhere to be seen. In fact, the large HD screen in front of him was playing a movie. Derek looked back at Kane. "It looks remarkably functional from here." Kane's face went pale, then blotchy red. She realized she had been exposed, but instead of apologizing, she doubled down. Panic does that to people. It makes them dangerous. "You invaded the first-class cabin," she screamed. "That is a security breach, Jason. Get the restraints." Jason came running from the back galley, holding a set of heavy-duty plastic zip-tie handcuffs. He looked terrified, but ready to follow orders. "Don't touch me," Derek said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a tone of authority, so absolute that Jason froze in his tracks. "Sit down, sir," Jason stammered. "Please." "I will sit down," Derek said. "But not because you told me to. I'll sit down because I don't want you to embarrass yourselves any further." He looked at Kane. He looked her dead in the eye. "You have made a grave mistake today, Kane. You think you have the power because you wear the uniform. You think you can judge me by my hoodie. You think I'm nobody." He leaned in closer. "I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember exactly how you treated me. Because when we land in London, the dynamic is going to change." "Is that a threat?" Kane scoffed, regaining her composure now that he was backing down. "I'm logging this. Section 4, paragraph 2. Interference with a flight crew. You'll be lucky if you don't leave this airport in handcuffs. Police will be meeting the aircraft." "Good," Derek said. "I look forward to speaking with them." He turned around and sat back down in 14C. He buckled his belt. The cabin was buzzing with whispers. "Did you see that guy? He's crazy. No, did you see the seat? He was right. The kid is sleeping in it." Derek stared at the seatback in front of him. His heart was hammering, but his mind was crystal clear. He had checked his watch. 4 hours and 15 minutes to London. He needed to get a message out. He couldn't use the Wi-Fi. He couldn't use his phone. But he had one thing they didn't know about. In his backpack, tucked in a hidden compartment, was a prototype device from Obsidian Dynamics. It was a satellite uplink node, a small black puck about the size of a hockey puck. It was designed for logistics tracking in remote areas where cellular networks didn't exist. It bypassed commercial Wi-Fi. It connected directly to the low Earth orbit satellite grid his company leased. He hadn't turned it on because electronic devices were supposed to be off during takeoff, and he respected regulations. But now it was war. He quietly unzipped the bag. He slid his hand inside. He pressed the activation button. A tiny, dim blue LED blinked once. He pulled out his phone. The device created a localized, invisible hotspot. Signal strength 100%. Derek smiled. He opened his email. He drafted a new message. To Jonathan Eves, Board of Directors. Michael Thorne. 5. P of HR. Captain David Miller. Chief Pilot. Ground Ops. Subject. Immediate action required. Flight AA409. Gentlemen, I am currently on board Flight 409. I have been denied my paid first-class seat due to racial profiling. The seat was given to a standby passenger. I have been denied food. I have been threatened with arrest by lead flight attendant Kane Jenkins. I have been publicly humiliated. I am invoking Article 12 of the acquisition contract immediately. I am assuming full operational control of the airline, effective this second. Here is what is going to happen when we land at Heathrow. Derek typed for 10 minutes. He laid out the plan. It was surgical. It was brutal. It was perfect. He hit send. The message flew from his phone to the puck, from the puck to a satellite 20,000 miles in space, and down to the servers in New York and London. 2 minutes later, a reply came from Jonathan Eves. Received, Mr. Michael. We are horrified. The Heathrow ground team is being mobilized. Legal is ready. The termination papers are being drafted now. We await your arrival. Derek locked his phone. He looked up. Kane was walking by again, checking to make sure he was behaved. She gave him a smug, victorious look. She thought she had won. She thought she had silenced the unruly passenger in 14C. She didn't know that the man she was looking at had just fired her from 30,000 feet. Derek closed his eyes, and finally, for the first time that day, he relaxed. Let the games begin. The descent into London Heathrow was turbulent. Rain lashed against the windows of the Boeing 777, blurring the city lights below into streaks of grey and amber. Inside the cabin, the mood was tense. The whispers hadn't stopped. Passengers in economy were casting covert glances at the man in 14C, the man who had stood up to the Dragon Lady of the Skies and won at least momentarily. Derek Michael sat in silence. He hadn't touched the pasta. He hadn't slept. He had spent the last 4 hours composing a mental dossier. He watched Kane every time she passed. He noted how she poured wine for business class, with a smile, then dropped the facade the second she passed the curtain into economy, her face hardening into a mask of disdain. 30 minutes before landing, Kane's voice crackled over the PA system. "Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. We will be landing shortly. Please return your seats to the upright position and stow your tray tables." There was a pause. Then her voice returned sharper this time. "We also ask that all passengers remain seated completely until the aircraft has come to a full and complete stop at the gate. We have had security concerns regarding passenger movement during this flight. Local authorities will be meeting the aircraft to handle a disruptive situation. We apologize for the delay this may cause to your deplaning." The cabin erupted in low murmurs. Everyone knew who she was talking about. She was publicly shaming him. She was preparing the witnesses. She was cementing the narrative that he was the villain. Derek didn't flinch. He just looked out the window. Good, he thought. Make it public. Make it loud. It will only make the apology sweeter. In the forward galley, Kane was feeling invincible. She had messaged the ground team via the crew chat. She had flagged Derek as a level 3 threat, aggressive, non-compliant, potential physical danger. She had requested airport police. She was going to have him dragged off the plane in handcuffs. It was the ultimate power move. She would ban him from Ascension Airways for life. She didn't notice the cockpit door open. Captain David Miller stepped out. He was a veteran pilot with grey hair and a weary face. He looked pale. He was holding a printout from the ACARS system, the text-based communication link between the plane and the ground. His hands were shaking slightly. "Kane," Captain Miller said, his voice low and urgent. "Dave, I'm busy prepping the cabin," Kane said, snapping an overhead bin shut. "Did you radio the police? I want them at the door the second we chock the wheels." "Kane, we need to talk," the captain hissed. He grabbed her arm, pulling her into the privacy of the galley. "I just got a message from HQ, from New York HQ." "So they probably saw my report," Kane said, pulling her arm away. "They want to know we handled the guy in 14C. "No," Miller said. He held up the paper. "The message is a code black priority. It says, do not engage passenger in 14C. Do not attempt to restrain. CEO and legal counsel meeting aircraft. Highest priority." Kane frowned. She snatched the paper. She read it, but her brain refused to process it. CEO. Why would the CEO be meeting a disruptive passenger? Unless... She let out a short, sharp laugh. Unless he's a terrorist or something. Maybe he's on a watch list. "Kane, use your head," Miller said, sweating. "Code black is for owners. VVIPs. Him." Kane jerked her head toward the curtain. The guy in the hoodie who tried to steal a first-class seat. Don't be ridiculous, Dave. It's a glitch, or maybe he hacked the system. He had some weird device earlier. I don't think it's a glitch, Miller warned. I think you need to cancel the police. Absolutely not, Kane said, her eyes narrowing. He threatened me. He breached the first-class cabin. I don't care who he knows. On this plane, I am the authority. If corporate wants to coddle him later, fine. But today, he leaves in cuffs. I'm not letting some thug walk over me. She turned her back on the captain. Prepare for landing, Dave. I'll handle the back. The captain stood there for a moment, looking at the back of her head. He realized then that he couldn't save her. She was too far gone in her own ego. He returned to the cockpit and locked the door. God help us, he thought. The wheels touched the runway with a heavy thud. The reverse thrusters roared. The plane slowed, taxied past the wet tarmac, and turned toward Terminal 5. As they pulled into the gate, Derek saw the flashing blue lights reflecting off the wet concrete. 2 police cars, a black Range Rover with tinted windows, and a sleek silver Jaguar. The seatbelt sign pinged off. Ladies and gentlemen, Kane announced, please remain seated. Police are boarding the aircraft. The front door opened. The cold London air rushed in. 2 officers from the Metropolitan Police boarded their high-visibility jackets bright yellow against the muted cabin tones. Behind them walked a woman. She was in her late 40s, wearing a trench coat that cost more than Kane's annual salary. She had hair cut into a sharp bob, and glasses that framed eyes of steel. It was Eleanor Graves, the director of UK operations for the airline's parent group. Kane didn't know Eleanor personally. Eleanor operated at a level far above flight crews, but she recognized the authority. Kane puffed out her chest. She assumed Eleanor was here to support the crew against the dangerous passenger. Kane stepped forward to greet them. Officers, ma'am, thank you for coming so quickly. The passenger is in 14C. He has been hostile, refused instructions, and attempted to breach the cockpit area. She pointed a dramatic finger toward the curtain. He's right there, the one in the grey hoodie. The police officers looked at Kane, then at Eleanor. Eleanor didn't look at Kane. She didn't acknowledge her existence. She walked straight past Kane, her heels clicking on the floor. She walked through the first-class cabin, past Timothy Vance, who was frantically trying to put his shoes on, looking terrified of the police, and pushed through the curtain into economy. The entire plane was holding its breath. Eleanor stopped at row 14. She looked down at Derek Michael. Derek looked up. He didn't stand. He just waited. Eleanor bowed her head. It wasn't a nod. It was a bow of deep, deferential respect. Mr. Michael, Eleanor said, her voice clear and projecting through the silent cabin. On behalf of the entire London team, I am mortified. We received your message. Derek unbuckled his seatbelt. He stood up. He towered over the cabin. Hello, Eleanor. It's been a long flight. I can only imagine, she said. We have the car waiting. Kane had followed them. She was standing in the aisle, her mouth slightly open. Her brain was misfiring. Mr. Michael, mortified. Car waiting. Excuse me. Kane interrupted her voice, shrill. Ma'am, that man is a security threat. He needs to be identified and removed. Eleanor turned slowly. The look she gave Kane was cold enough to freeze jet fuel. He has been identified, Eleanor said, and he will be removed, but not by the police. I don't understand, Kane stammered. He's in economy. He tried to sneak into first. Derek stepped into the aisle. He looked at Kane. He reached into his hoodie pocket. Jason, the male flight attendant, flinched, expecting a weapon. Derek pulled out a black titanium card. It wasn't a credit card. It was an access key. It had the airline's logo, embossed in gold, and below it the words Chairman and CEO. He held it up. "I didn't try to sneak in, Kane," Derek said softly. "I bought the airline this morning." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating, and absolute. The color didn't just drain from Kane's face. It vanished, leaving her looking like a wax figure. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Her hands, previously perched on her hips in a stance of authority, fell limp to her sides. You bought," she whispered. "The papers were signed at 6:00 a.m. New York time," Derek said. "My first act as owner was to fly the product, to see how my customers are treated." He gestured around the cramped economy cabin. "I have to say the hard product is mediocre. But the soft product, the service," he looked Kane up and down, "it is cancerous." "Sir, Kane's voice trembled. Tears began to well up instantly, the weaponized tears of a bully who has been caught. "I didn't know. If I had known who you were, I would have—" "You would have what?" Derek cut her off. "Treated me like a human being. You would have served me the meal I paid for. You would have given me the seat I bought." He took a step closer. The police officers stepped back to give him room. "That is the problem, Kane. You shouldn't need to know I'm the CEO to treat me with basic dignity. You looked at my clothes, you looked at my skin, and you decided I was trash. You decided I was a liar, and you enjoyed it. I saw you smiling when you sent me to the back." "I was just following protocol," she pleaded, looking to the police for help. The system said I was Global Infinity Key," Derek corrected. "You and your colleague at the gate, Gregory, decided to override the system because of your own bias. Speaking of Gregory," Derek turned to Eleanor, "do we have an update on JFK?" Eleanor nodded. She pulled a tablet from her bag. "Yes, sir. Security forces at JFK escorted Gregory Marsh off the premises 20 minutes ago. His access has been revoked. He is currently being processed for fraud for manipulating the seating chart to upgrade his friends." She tapped the screen and turned it toward Kane. It showed a security log. "It seems seat 1A wasn't broken, was it?" "Kane," Eleanor asked. "It was manually blocked by the gate agent and then released to Mr. Timothy Vance, a buddy pass upgrade that was unauthorized." Derek looked at seat 1A. Timothy Vance was currently shrinking into the leather, trying to become invisible. "Mr. Vance," Derek called out. Timothy jumped. "Dude, I didn't know, I swear. My cousin works at the counter. He just said he'd hook me up if there was space." "It's not your fault, son," Derek said. "Enjoy the movie, but you might want to find a new way home. This ticket is void for the return leg." Derek turned back to Kane. The tears were flowing freely now. She was shaking. "Mr. Michael, please," she begged. "I have been with this airline for 15 years. I have a mortgage. I have kids. Please just write me up. Suspend me. Don't ruin my life over one mistake." Derek looked at her. For a second he felt a twinge of pity, but then he remembered the way she had looked at him at the gate. "You don't belong here." He remembered the hungry look in her eyes when she threatened to call the police. She wasn't sorry she did it. She was sorry she got caught. "You tried to have me arrested, Kane," Derek said coldly. "You called the police to put me in a cage because I asked for water and stood up to stretch. You weren't worried about my mortgage. You weren't worried about my life." He turned to the police officers. "Officers, I am not pressing charges for the assault on my character today, though I could. However, I am filing a formal report regarding the falsification of flight manifests and security protocols." "Understood, sir," the lead officer said. He turned to Kane. "Ma'am, we need you to grab your bags." Am I being arrested?" Kane gasped. "You are being escorted off the aircraft to the precinct for a statement," the officer said, "and you are being trespassed from the airport at the request of the airline owner." "You can't do this," she screamed. She looked at Jason and the other flight attendants. "Help me tell them." Jason looked at the floor. He wasn't going to go down with the ship. He stepped back into the galley, distancing himself from her. Eleanor stepped forward. She held out her hand. "Your badge, Kane, and your ID." "No." Kane clutched her lapel. "Now," Eleanor barked. It was the voice of someone who fired people for breakfast. With trembling hands, Kane unpinned her gold wings, the wings she was so proud of. She handed them to Eleanor. Then she handed over her ID lanyard. "You are terminated effective immediately for gross misconduct, discrimination, and violation of corporate values," Eleanor stated. "Your belongings will be mailed to you. You are not to set foot on Ascension property again." "Get her off my plane," Derek said. The police officers took Kane by the arms. She wasn't fighting physically, but she was wailing. "This isn't fair. I didn't know. It's not fair." Her cries echoed through the cabin as they marched her down the aisle, past the first-class pods she treated like her personal kingdom, and out the door into the cold London rain. When the door closed, the silence in the cabin was profound. Derek stood in the aisle of economy. He looked at the passengers in row 14, 15, and 16. They were staring at him with wide eyes. "I apologize for the delay, everyone," Derek said, his voice returning to a calm, professional baritone. "And I apologize for the service you received today. It will be better. I promise." "Does that mean we get better food?" a guy in row 15 asked tentatively. Derek cracked a smile. "Yes. And everyone on this flight is getting a full refund and a voucher for a future round-trip ticket on the house." A cheer erupted from the back of the plane. People started clapping. It wasn't polite applause. It was the raucous cheering of people who had seen a tyrant toppled. Derek grabbed his backpack from under seat 14C. He didn't look back at the empty seat. He walked toward the front. As he passed the galley, Jason was standing there looking like he was about to vomit. "Mr. Michael," Jason squeaked. About the chicken, Derek stopped. He looked Jason in the eye. "You were following her lead," Derek said. "Fear is a powerful motivator. You kept your job today, Jason. But you're on probation. Watch how you treat people. You never know who is wearing the hoodie." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." "Never again, sir." Derek walked out of the plane. The air in the jet bridge tasted sweet. It tasted like victory. Eleanor walked beside him. "The car is this way, sir. We have the board meeting scheduled for 2 p.m. "Cancel it," Derek said. "Sir, I need a shower. I need a real meal. And I need to sleep in a bed that lies flat." He checked his watch. "Reschedule the board meeting for tomorrow morning. And Eleanor," "Yes, Mr. Michael." "Start a complete audit of the hiring practices for customer-facing roles. I want empathy to be a tested metric." "I'll make a note of it immediately." They walked through the terminal. As they passed the glass windows, Derek looked back at the plane one last time. It was just a machine, aluminum and plastic. But inside the culture was rotting. Not anymore, he thought. Today, we cleaned house. He pulled his hood up over his head, adjusted his backpack, and walked out into the London fog, invisible once again. The fallout was not quiet. In the age of smartphones and social media, nothing stays at 30,000 feet. By the time Derek Michael woke up the next morning in his suite at the Connaught, a video had already gone viral. A passenger in row 15 had filmed the entire confrontation from Kane, screaming about the cockpit breach, to the moment Derek revealed the titanium CEO card. The video was titled "Karen Flight Attendant Fired by Black Billionaire Mid-Air." It had 4.5 million views in 12 hours. For Ascension Airways, it could have been a death sentence. The stock dipped 4% in pre-market trading as accusations of systemic racism flooded Twitter X. But Derek was ahead of the curve. At 9 a.m., instead of a defensive press release, Ascension released a video from Derek himself. He was wearing the same grey hoodie. He sat in a plain chair against a white wall. The stock didn't just recover, it soared. The public loved justice. But for the people involved, the consequences were far more personal. 6 months later, the rain was falling in Newark, New Jersey. In a cramped break room behind a budget car rental counter, a woman sat eating a cold sandwich. Her name tag read Kane. She looked different. The pristine blonde French twist was gone, replaced by a messy ponytail. The tailored navy uniform was gone, replaced by a cheap, ill-fitting red polo shirt. She checked her phone. She had an email from Delta. Regarding your application for flight attendant. Unfortunately, at this time, it was the 10th rejection letter this month. The aviation industry is a small world. The do not hire list isn't official, but word travels fast. The chief pilot of Ascension played golf with the VP of HR at United. The story of the first-class gatekeeper who tried to arrest her own boss had become an industry legend, a cautionary tale told during Zo training seminars. Kane sighed and tossed the phone into her bag. A customer was banging on the plexiglass out front. "Hey, is anyone working here? I reserved a luxury sedan and all you have is a compact." Kane stood up. She forced a smile. It was painful. "I'm coming, sir. I'll see what I can do." She walked out to the counter. The man was wearing a hoodie. Kane flinched. She didn't argue. She didn't roll her eyes. She typed fast. "I have an upgrade available, sir. No charge." She had learned the hard lesson, but she had learned it too late to save her wings. Meanwhile, at 35,000 feet over the Pacific Ascension, Airways Flight 802 to Tokyo was midway through dinner service. In the economy cabin, a flight attendant moved through the aisle. It was Jason. He looked different, too. He stood taller. His uniform was crisp. He wasn't rushing. He stopped at row 22, where an elderly woman was struggling to open a packet of crackers. "Let me get that for you, ma'am," Jason said softly. He opened it and placed it on her tray. "Can I get you a refill on your tea?" "Oh, thank you, dear." She smiled. Jason walked back toward the galley. He passed a man in seat 22C. The man was wearing a faded grey hoodie, reading a book. He had a baseball cap pulled low. Jason paused. He looked at the man's hands. He saw the watch, a scratched Garmin. The man looked up. It was Derek Michael. Derek wasn't in first class. He was doing his monthly spot check, flying economy to test the new service protocols. Jason didn't gasp. He didn't make a scene. He didn't try to upgrade him. He simply nodded, a look of profound respect in his eyes. "Good evening, Mr. Michael," Jason whispered. "Everything okay back here?" "The pasta is actually hot today, Jason." Derek smiled. "And the crew is smiling. Good work." "We're trying, sir. The culture is different now. Better." "Keep it up," Derek said. And Jason. "Yes, sir. When we land, come see me. I think you're ready for the Purser training program. We need leaders who know what it feels like to be afraid, so they ensure no passenger ever feels that way again." Jason's eyes widened. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." Jason walked away to finish the service. Derek leaned back against the seat. It was still cramped. The legroom was still tight. But the air in the cabin felt lighter. He looked out the window at the clouds illuminated by the moonlight. He had spent billions to fix a company, but in reality, he had just reminded them of a simple truth. Derek pulled his hood up and closed his eyes. He finally got some sleep. And that is the story of how one arrogant mistake brought down an entire career and changed an airline forever. Kane learned the hard way that in this world, power doesn't always wear a suit, and dignity isn't something you can gatekeep. She judged a book by its cover, and that book turned out to be the one signing her paychecks. It's a brutal reminder that how we treat the least among us says everything about who we really are. Karma doesn't always hit instantly, but when it does, it hits like a freight train. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a story.